Welcome to Get Wed,
a podcast to plan your wedding by.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Kerry.
And we're both here as professional photographers
and brides-to-be to help you plan your big day.
Each week we'll discuss a topic that you'll encounter along your wedding planning journey.
And with the help of fellow industry experts, we'll navigate this crazy wedding world
together. Hello everybody and welcome back. I'm Katie.
I'm Kerry.
And this week we are going to be talking about everything you need to know about church ceremonies. So we think we're brave enough to do this one, considering the hundreds of weddings we've both done, don't we, Kerry?
Yeah, I mean, between us, we must have done about 500 weddings. So yeah. I think we've been to a lot of churches, and I think we know roughly what we're talking about. And I guess it's going to be very much church ceremonies in relation to getting your wedding photos, because that's just what we're good at.
Yeah, but, definitely. And it will benefit you. So
yes. Yeah.
Why not?
So basically, if you've booked a church for your wedding, here's everything you need to know. First of all, we thought we'd start off with talking about checking the rules for photography with your vicar. And this is a big one. So many people come to me once they've booked their wedding and they haven't even thought to ask their vicar about photography. And it's so disappointing when they end up disappointed because their vicar has come back to them and told them that they don't allow photography, which is just the saddest thing ever on a wedding day.
Oh, it's awful. It just breaks my heart if a couple say, oh, you're not allowed, by the way, because I just think, oh, what a waste, and all those lovely moments. So yeah, make sure you check early on as well, because you can always you can change churches as well if you're not happy. So and
it's worth pointing out that it's not the church that has particular rules. It varies from vicar to vicar. So make sure you're meeting the vicar who's actually going to be marrying you on your wedding day, because they're the one who will decide whether or not they're allowed pictures. I've had that before where a couple have booked a different vicar who was fine, but then the one on the day wasn't. So
oh, really?
Yeah, you really need to be careful with it. Have you ever had it before where you've got to a wedding and just had to sit at the back and you can't take any pictures?
Oh, yes, several times. And it's such a waste as well, because, the couple are paying me to do a job and I'm just sitting there. So I feel bad and sad and, it's just horrible. And do just check. So if that is the case, at least everyone's aware as well, because there's nothing more heartbreaking than turning up, saying hello, nice to meet you, and then being cut down and told absolutely.
And imagine how the couple must feel if they've expected you to be at the front during the ceremony or something, and they get to the front and they can't see their photographer anywhere, and it's because you've been told you can't take pictures. So just make sure you are aware as a couple what the rules are, because you don't want to get to the front and be thinking, where's the photographer? Why is there no pictures being taken? Oh. It just makes me feel a bit sick just the thought of that.
Yeah. So, it's horrible, isn't it? So just be organised. Check where they're going to stand too, because from a photographer's point of view, you want to be at the front because that's where the good stuff's happening, rather than traditionally at the back. So check that too.
You want to be able to you get the nice expressions in people's faces throughout the ceremony and things. The only difficulty with that is I can't talk. In certain churches, the front view can sometimes be quite difficult, where if they've got those, I don't know what they're called, like the big kind of archy things.
The choir booths and
So you find that your photographer will have quite a tricky angle at the front, so they might not want to stand there. But I always try to stand at the front and then have my second photographer at the back, or you can walk around at the end to get that nice view down the aisle. But as far as I think, the problem with vicars is they've had so many bad experiences from probably amateur photographers or videographers who don't necessarily know what they're doing, and so they've kind of ruined things for the professionals that are coming in. So I know Katie and I probably work in the same situation where we'll stand in one position throughout the whole ceremony. We won't move. We're not there to distract from your ceremony. We're there just to record it. So we'll stand in one spot and only take photos from that spot. We're not going to be rolling around on the floor,
flashing the flash.
Doing a shot over your head as you do your rings. None of that happens. But I think that there have been
really
photographers.
Fun,
but there must have been photographers in the past who have done something like that to make vicars go, no, photographers just ruined the ceremony, and they've stopped it. So we'll stand in one spot. We'll be very unobtrusive. And we're there to kind of get those lasting memories for you, not to ruin your wedding day or distract from the kind of importance of the ceremony itself. But check the rules, because that is just the scariest part.
Yeah, no, definitely. And when it comes to arriving as well, so Kerry and I were saying sometimes parking can be a nightmare at churches depending on where they're located. So check that the guests know if parking is really tricky, let them know, get there in good time. if you want to get a good space, so you don't get people arriving late, because you always get people coming late to churches, don't you find, Gary?
Yeah, because people can never find them.
Yeah, exactly. And if a sat nav doesn't take you to the church, let people know it doesn't.
Yeah.
Try your best to organise like a field next door or something with people to park in, or help people out. But obviously, if you can't, just let people know, I think.
And it's really important. Sorry, I've interrupted you, because I just had a light bulb moment where I had a church once where it was in a town centre, and the nearest place to park was a pay and display car park on a Saturday morning. So you have to think about, like, if there's a market in town or something, hundreds of people are going to be parking in that car park, plus the 100 or so people you've got coming to your wedding day. So yeah, you really need to make your guests aware of parking situations in case they need to get there early enough to get a space to obviously be in time for the wedding.
And also with locations, do make it clear, because sometimes there might be 2-3 churches all very, very close together, and it can be really hard actually to work out which one is which. We've obviously the signs outside, but sometimes they're not, posted as well as you'd like. So
I remember second shooting for someone. Oh, sorry, I interrupted you again. I was second shot with somebody when I first started out as their assistant photographer, and she was driving, and so we turned up at this church where there was a couple of guests standing outside, and we were like, oh, where is everyone? Like, what's happening? Like, they should be here in like half an hour or something. And then suddenly the lady who I was photographing the wedding with was like, this can't be the right church. There's not enough people here. And so we kind of got back in the car and sped down the road, and it was the next one along the road, and we just kind of stumbled upon it. But that was a pretty tricky situation to be in. So.
I've done exactly the same thing. Yeah. And it made me feel so physically sick. I just So do let people know if it is really, really close to another one, which one it is.
And from the photographer's point of view as well, is that we've got such a short window of time to leave bridal prep and get to the church that we can't really deal with getting lost or not being able to find the church. So we need the exact directions if it's tricky to find. So and
also if you can reserve spaces as well, then that's brilliant, but just can't always happen.
I was just about to say that.
So reserve one obviously for yourself, because you're kind of important as well, but think of your photographer or videographer as well,
because you're lucky as the bride that you're going to turn up, get driven to the door, get out the car and go straight into the church, whereas we've got to arrive, park the car, get our stuff out, get in the church, come back out and meet you. So we've got that extra bit of logistics to deal with. Parking's one of those things that keeps me up at night and really panics me.
Oh, definitely. It's hardly ever straightforward when it comes to churches, so
just talking about it is making me a little bit panicky. So.
Oh, sorry. To make you panic for this year.
Yeah. Whenever I've got a church wedding, I have to go and do like a little recce beforehand, so I can, or at least do it on Google Maps, so I know exactly what I'm looking for. Because I just panic so much about the parking situation. It kind of gives me nightmares.
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk about something nicer.
Sorry. Yeah, we're all like anxious messes now. So another thing we thought to talk about would be confetti as well. So double check it's allowed firstly, and also what it has to be made of. So if it has to be petals or degradable, then you need to know.
Yeah. So I think sometimes you're not allowed to throw it unless it's can be eaten by the birds. So like rose petals or things like that, or natural petals. So I think another thing to think about with that is, if it is allowed, whereabouts in the churchyard you're allowed to throw it, because some will let you throw it from the doors of the church, which makes a really lovely shot, because you can get everyone lined up down that kind of church path, and you can come down the middle and all the confetti. It's beautiful. But then other churches will only let you throw it outside of the church gates, which means you've got a little bit of pavement before you get on the road. So
so you're probably better off doing it at the venue or something like that in that case.
So just double check those things. And also when it comes to confetti, more is best. Like, just get as much confetti as you can afford. And confetti's really expensive, but so worth it. So
definitely. I don't regret like buying. I bought paper actually, and that is cheaper. If you're allowed degradable paper, then it is cheaper. But it always looks so good. And like you said, do supply it. Don't expect people to bring enough. Like, supply it.
I find that the only people that really bring confetti are like the older relatives.
Yes, otherwise, that's so true. Like the nannies and stuff.
People who, like that traditional thing of taking your like the little horseshoe confetti in the little box.
Oh, the horrible little horseshoes.
But they're the only people who will bring it, so definitely supply it. And you can get those nice little cones to put it in and stuff, but the more you provide the better. It just makes for incredible pictures, and if you get really colourful stuff too, it just looks amazing. So
and big bits as well, not the little flaky wispy bits, like proper big bits,
huge bits of confetti, and then that'll be one of your favourite photos.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
And then,
And big enough to pick off you as well. Like,
yes,
yeah, so it doesn't all disappear, and so you can just like brush it off,
that's such a good
move
idea.
on.
Do you know what this just made me think about? Do you remember in our little photography group on Facebook, one of the photographers
Yeah.
mentioned that in a wedding recently around Christmas time, they threw fake snow?
Oh yes, I remember. Yeah.
Which sounds magical, but she said it was a nightmare to just look like everyone had dandruff in their hair afterwards.
Yeah. So do think, I mean, you don't want to, I mean, she spent hours, didn't she, removing it,
Yeah,
but
photoshopping
some
it.
photographers wouldn't. And like you said, you don't look like you've all got dandruff and rubbish on you all day.
No.
Yeah. So big
Yeah.
bits, not little bits of snow.
I think sometimes having confetti left over on you is quite nice because it is your wedding day. But I had loads left in my hair, but I was like, it's my wedding day, I don't care. But as long as you're okay with that and you're not going to look back and think, oh, why did I have like confetti in my hair? You know, just think it through. Think it through.
Yeah.
And then moving on to the ceremony, we wanted to talk to you about the idea of an unplugged ceremony. So if you've not heard about this is the idea of asking your guests not to take photos during your ceremony. And it might be that your vicar doesn't allow it anyway, as we mentioned. But if you ask your guests not to take pictures either with their phones or their cameras or their iPads or their selfie sticks in the
Always
aisle.
iPads. Oh.
It just means that when you walk in down the aisle, everyone's going to be looking at you, which is what you want, rather than looking at you through a phone or through a camera. And it also means that from your photographer's point of view, when they're taking a picture, they're not just taking a photo of loads of people with phones in the air or iPads, which are the worst.
All blocking the view and just distracting you from you want to be looking at people's faces, not necessarily
you want to walk down the aisle and see loads of people smiling at you, not
and really happy for you.
Yeah. Oh, George is having a little cough.
Excuse George.
He got really happy about that. I had a little smile.
He's like, oh, what a lovely moment. I remember that.
And then again, when you walk back down the aisle as husband and wife, or husband and husband, or wife, that's again, you want to look at everyone's smiley faces and be like, yay, we did it, rather than looking into a sea of cameras and iPhones. Which
where are the faces? Where are the people?
What are all these robots doing here? So just asking people not to take pictures during that point, it's just really nice. I think registrars, we're not talking about that today, but registrars will kind of invite people up during the signing sometimes to let them take pictures if they so want to. But just tell them to put them away just for like half an hour of the day. It's really not hard. No. And the worst thing is
your
selfie
photographer
stick.
will get the best ones. And sorry, Kerry.
Selfie sticks poking out in the aisle when people are told they're not allowed to take pictures, but then they put their phone on a selfie stick and stick it out, and you think that's ruining my view, isn't it? At the back of the aisle.
Do you get that? That's mental.
Have you not had that?
No.
Oh, it annoys me so much.
That's really cheeky. Yeah, I mean, you could do all sorts with that. You could be going up skirts. God knows what.
Katie, you pervert.
Sorry.
But yeah, so really, really consider the idea of an unplugged ceremony, and you can make these cute little signs to put up or put it in your order of service just to make people aware, and even ask your vicar to say it beforehand so that you know for sure the focus is going to be on you and not on people trying to take photos that they'll never do anything with on their phones anyway. So
yeah, no, exactly. And that brings us on to flowers. So we think it's a really good idea as well to ask if you're allowed to take your flowers away, because some churches say you have to leave them here. So
did they? I did not know that.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's a thing that happens a lot, but I've had it at a few churches. So you drop a small fortune and then you're not allowed to actually take them with you. But then obviously if you are allowed to take them as well, make sure you've got ushers, you've got someone to say you're in charge of taking that to the venue after the ceremony, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, it's like logistical nightmares there. I guess like if you pay like a lot of money for flowers on the kind of church arch on the way in and stuff, and then you have to leave it, that's a bit sad, isn't it, really? Because it probably costs a lot of money.
It does look so nice though, doesn't it? I love it when people do that.
And then you definitely know you've got the right church when you turn up and there's flowers.
Yes, that's so
like, this is the one.
Unless there's 2 ceremonies going on.
Yeah. Make sure you know the colour theme at least when you go to your wedding. So yeah, make sure you kind of have a little ask about your flowers in church. You mentioned as well that sometimes the heating costs extra.
Yeah, so I think heating is extra, and also things like church bells as well can be extra. So think about if you want that as well for your wedding.
Oh, there's nothing better than a church wedding with the old bell ringers going when you arrive.
Do you think? But normally I'm trying to do pictures and I have to shout like over the bells, and then suddenly they stop and I'm still going, like shouting at everyone. But yeah, no, all those little extras as well, do consider them, think about them, make sure that if there is any extra charges,
Yeah, find out if
and
they're
think about
included.
heating and stuff as well. So if it is the winter, if you've got to keep people warm, or in the summer normally it's nice and cool in
Yeah,
churches, so you
although
don't have to
sometimes in the spring or summer it can be really cold in the church still, because they're quite cold buildings, aren't they? So you might want to have the heating on when you don't think you do, and then that's an unexpected cost that you've then got to pay for. So think it through. And then whilst we were talking about heating, sometimes the downsides with churches is that they've got those really awful heaters with the bright red lights.
Oh yes, yes, good point, Kerry. Yeah.
And although they keep you very warm, they make everybody look red.
Yeah, and horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from a photography point of view, it's a nightmare, because we're there trying to colour balance it afterwards, and it just drains all the colour out of you, trying to take the red tones out. Oh, I just hate seeing them.
You're like, oh no. Yeah, so do maybe think, oh, I don't know, but you could not have them on though,
No,
could you?
I don't know.
If you want to look nice, then maybe don't have them on.
But you might find that you get a lot more black and white photos if
Yeah.
you've got red heaters, because sometimes it's the best way to combat that issue. But yeah, I mean, just think it through. If you're standing there and you think, oh, my skin's being really red, you're going to have to expect a little bit of irregularity in your pictures, I guess. But yeah, George.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, just think about that. What were you going to say?
I was thinking as well about music. So
Yes.
in churches as well, if you can afford to have a choir or somebody who kind of knows a bit more of the songs, then that's always a good idea, because otherwise they can be quite cringy if no one's singing and everyone's quite quiet. Then sorry, that was George again. I do apologise, everyone. But yeah, then that can be quite a good idea, don't you think, Kerry? Because there's nothing worse than like no organ and nobody's really singing, and it's all a bit awkward.
I think sometimes people can kind of get a bit don't quite get into the hymns as much as they should, do they? So if you have a choir, it just sounds amazing. So perhaps think that through. I went to a wedding last year, the year before, where the bride was a primary school teacher, and she had her class come in and sing the songs.
Oh, that is so sweet.
It was really lovely. So think about how you can do
lovely.
things a little bit differently. Perhaps if you don't want to pay for a choir, but you've kind of got some resources like small children who are happy to come to your wedding on a Saturday. And think how excited they must have been to see their teacher getting married as well.
Yeah, that's really so
fun.
nice.
It's like a little primary school. So yeah, it was really sweet.
Oh, how cute.
And you can also get friends to sing.
I had all the guests, and that they like all, well, it was like a surprise. They were in the guests, the choir, and then they stood up one by one and started all singing loads, and then they all went up to the sun. So that was quite cool. So sometimes churches can be really relaxed about things like that, and you can actually make it like quite a big theatrical thing, actually.
Yeah,
so.
like that scene in Love Actually where they're walking down the aisle and everyone gets up with their trumpets.
Yeah. Oh, I love that bit. Yeah.
So yeah, I think music might cost you extra, but there are ways around it, I guess, of making it more affordable if you've got resources to call in. Yeah. And then back again to lighting, I wanted to mention that when you're booking your church, have a look at, when you go in, see if it's a nice, bright, light and airy space.
Yes.
Because sometimes churches can be really dark, which makes the photography a little bit more difficult for your photographer. So especially if they're not allowed to use flash or anything, which quite often is the case with church weddings. So if you've got a really bright, airy church, they're the best. Ones with lots of space to move around for picture, not that we move too much, but for us to kind of get a good angle of you. So just have a look at the church as well. If you're booking a church because of its kind of meaning to you as a family, I guess you've kind of got less chance of finding a nice airy one there. But if you are just booking a church because you want a church ceremony and you're not necessarily bothered about which church, find the best looking one. Yeah.
And one that's painted white inside, ideally, and lovely and bright and beautiful.
Yeah. So many times I've gone up to a church thinking, oh no, this one's going to be really dark, and I walk in and it's actually amazing. And I think, yes, thank you.
It does make such, like, the more light you get, basically the nicer your picture is going to be. We know it's not all about your pictures, but we think they're really important.
We do. But yeah, I think that's everything to do with church ceremonies. So just a quick roundup. First of all, check your vicar's rules for photography so you're not disappointed. Check where your photographer can stand. Think about your arriving at the church. So is there enough parking for your guests and enough parking for your photographer? Have you made the location clear of your church? So if it's out in the sticks somewhere, can your guests find it? especially if there's more than one church en route. If you're providing flowers, can you take them onto your venue, or do you have to leave them at the church? Will that be a waste of money? George is yawning, he's really bored of me. Think about confetti as well. Can it be thrown in the churchyard? If not, check the rules in case you need the degradable stuff, or you can have what you want. And then we spoke about having an unplugged ceremony so that you're not distracted at all throughout the ceremony, and you get to see everyone's smiling faces. And then we spoke about lighting, make sure they're nice and bright and airy, and then the heating might cost you extra, and you might have to do all those unsightly red heaters. So,
yeah, I think that's very good, Kerry. Beautifully rounded up there.
Thank you. I'm a podcaster.
So, hope that's been helpful for you.
Yes, thank you so much for listening. And don't forget, you can come along and join our Facebook group if you haven't done so already. You can find the link to that on our website, which is getwebpodcast.co.uk. And then come in there and ask us any questions if we've not gone over anything or you've got confused by something we spoke about today.
Lovely. Perfect. Thank you very much. Speak to you soon.
Yeah, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. We really hope that you've enjoyed this episode of Get Wed. Don't forget you can always subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, and while you're there you may as well leave us a review. You can join us for more wedding chat in our Facebook group if you just can't wait until next week. You'll find all the links that you need via our website, including show notes for this episode, over at getwebpodcast.co.uk. We'll see you next time. Happy planning!